So there are a lot of best setting videos out there for Call of Duty Black Ops 6 right now, and I don't normally make videos like this, but this needs to be out there because there is one setting that you can change in Black Ops 6 and it will immediately make you better at the game. I went from like a 2-kill death every game to like a 3-kill death or above every single game just by changing this one thing. It immediately makes you better at the game, and on top of that, there's a bunch of other settings as well that are going to make you better at the game and enjoy the game more. But that one setting, I'm not even going to beat around the bush or anything. I'm going to show you that one setting right away because you need to know it. It is going to make you play better. And then we will go through the rest of the settings in the game. And like I said, it'll make you better and you are going to enjoy the game a lot more. So without further ado, let me jump in and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, get out of my way. So this one setting that I'm talking about is a movement setting. So right now, when I move, I have base movement settings on. And when I go front, backwards, side to side, you can see that I am not sprinting. In Omni movement, you always want to be sprinting. And right now, when I go to sprint, I have to push sprint in whatever direction I'm trying to go in. And it's kind of difficult. And on top of that, if I want to slide to the right, I have to push sprint and then slide to the right. Or I want to sprint backwards, I have to push backwards and then slide backwards. So there's this little extra button press that makes it a little bit more difficult. However, if I go into controller settings and then I go to movement, there is this setting called sprint assist. You can turn it on or you can turn on tactical sprint assist. This makes it when you push any direction, you are automatically sprinting, or in this case, tactical sprinting. Now, when you turn this on, your sprint assist delay is going to be set to 400 milliseconds. You want this at 0 because otherwise you are going to be waiting to sprint, and you don't want that. You always want to be sprinting. So now, instead of having to push down that sprint button on my controller, I can just push any direction and I'm immediately sprinting in any direction, which means if I'm going backwards, I can just immediately slide backwards. If I'm going to the left, I can dive to the left just by pushing one button. Now, there's some other buttons that are going to be important as well, but this is number one. Just by changing this, movement is going to be 100% easier for you, and movement is the most important thing within Black Ops 6. It is the one thing that is going to make you better. Now, moving into settings. First things first, I do not play on keyboard and mouse. I'm not going to suggest any keyboard and mouse settings because, number one, I don't know them. And number two, I think playing keyboard and mouse on this game with Omni movement is not going to be easy. I think if you want to play competitively at all, controller is where it's going to be at. Now, I have always played on tactical button layout. Essentially what this does is put all of my movement in my sticks, which with Omni movement is even more important. So again, I have my left stick, which is going to be all of my movement, and then my right stick, which is going to be like my crouch, slide, dive, anything along those lines, whereas my melee weapon will be on circle. Now I'm using a scuff controller, so I have buttons on the back, which allows me to melee with one button and not having to take my thumb off that control stick anyway. Now, as far as your sensitivity, I like 8.7. You can play a little bit higher, and with Omni movement, you might need to play a little bit higher, but one higher horizontal than vertical in this game is very important because of all of the sliding from side to side and diving. People are going to be moving faster side to side than up and down. Now, simplified controls, to make it simple, do not need to be on whatsoever. Some people I know play bumper ping. I do not. A controller by vibration, just turn it off because it's going to throw you off when you shoot enemies. So dead zone. Dead zone is going to be incredibly important for your aiming and especially for aim assist, believe it or not. So for dead zone, it's going to measure the amount that your sticks drift after you move them. So when we turn this on, we have an option to test our dead zones. So as you can see, immediately on my left stick, I have 2% and 3% respectively, whereas on my right stick, when I move it, I have about -2% on my vertical axis. This one is -2, -3. So what this tells me is my left stick, 2 to 3%, my right stick, 1 to 2%. So I'm going to turn that off, and on my left stick, I want to put my dead zone at 1 less than my minimum stick drift. So that is 1% because my minimum stick drift was 2. Why? Because with rotational aim assist, whenever you are moving even a slight amount, it is going to make it so your aim assist kicks in. What this means is with my dead zone, if I have this set to 1 less, I am essentially always moving, which means my aim assist is always active. Whereas on my right stick, my stick drift was 3%, I believe, at the most. So I'm going to set my right stick drift to 3% change. There, it's set correctly. So your right stick is going to be the same as your maximum stick drift, and your left stick is going to be 1% less than your minimum stick drift. I hope I made that make sense. Now, speaking of which, we now need to move into aiming. So as far as aiming goes, most of this is going to be pretty straightforward. You want that to set to standard. And then when in your advanced settings, you want dynamic on. Dynamic is important and instant is important. That means when you aim down sights, your sensitivity multiplier is immediately applied, which we will get into in a second. And dynamic is going to give you that extra aim assist when you are moving around, which is going to be always, as we just discussed, because of your controller dead zones. So remember how I talked about instant transitioning when aiming down sights? This is where this next thing comes in, your sensitivity presume. So on my low weapons, I want 85% of my sensitivity, whereas when I move up to my high weapons and specifically have high zoom, I don't want to be moving across that screen super slow. So I have those set to 1.1 and 1.05 respectively. So basically as my zoom gets larger, I have faster movement on my ADS. Now this brings us to movement. Again, your tactical sprint assist is the only assist that you want on. You're going to want to make sure that you have 0 and then on and on. That way you are sprinting in every direction constantly without having to push anything to sprint. Now mantle assist and crouch assist, I want off. I have not touched those. I don't think they make any sense. Now, another thing that I have seen in movement behaviors is people changing your slide and dive behavior. If you are using tactical sprint assist, you want this on tap to slide. Otherwise, you are not going to have control over whether you are diving or sliding, because some people are choosing hybrid. And with hybrid, if you are always sprinting, you are always going to be diving, and more times than not, you actually want to be sliding. So you want tap to slide with these settings. 100%, that is very important. You want auto door peek off, or you are going to find yourself even more annoyed with doors. For advanced movement settings, you want tactical sprint behavior. This one doesn't matter because essentially we have auto tack sprint on. You're going to want to make sure your sprint restore is on and slide maintain sprint on. I'm going to mess with this setting a little bit more, but from what I have seen, you want to be sprinting right after sliding. So this one makes the most sense. Tactical sprint behavior doesn't matter because we have auto tack sprint on, and you want sprinting door bash on as well. As far as combat settings, I don't think you really need to change anything here. You can see what I'm using. However, in your advanced combat settings, this is where you might need to change some things. The first one is by default, I was set to tap to interact. I want tap to reload. Otherwise, every time I go to reload and tap to reload, I'm going to be picking up weapons off the ground. So you're going to want that one. Sprint cancels reload. You can turn that on. I just don't like it. Then we also have our dedicated melee weapon behavior. This is new to this game. So you have two options. You can either hold your melee weapon to pull out your weapon, which is important because when you're holding your melee weapon, you have infinite tactical sprint. But you can also set it up so it's weapon cycling. So instead of holding your melee weapon, you literally just switch through your weapons. So you'll pull out your pistol and then you'll pull out your melee weapon and then you'll pull out your main weapon again. I think hold the melee is way, way better. And then this has to do with the body shield. I recommend keeping this on off. Otherwise, every time you're behind someone and press or tap melee, you're immediately going to pick them up as a body shield and not execute them. But the choice is yours. Now, as far as graphic settings, essentially the things that are going to matter for you playing well are having low ping and low lag and also field of view, which we will get at. But essentially on this first screen, your display, what you want to make sure is VSync is off, as well as high dynamic range is off. Other than that, you're pretty much set up there. So looking at quality for the most part here, this is going to again be different. I turned my texture resolutions on very low because I want to eliminate ping as much as possible. As far as texture streaming, I keep it on optimized. And then your shadow and lighting, the only thing that I really change here is I turn off reflections whatsoever, and then static reflection quality on low. The reason being is if you turn off reflections, it's easier to see through glass and see through water, which means if someone's behind glass or in water, they are easier to kill. Now moving over to view, if you get motion sick while playing the game, turn that on. I don't. Field of view, I put on 110 and you need affected on. That's going to make a very big difference. However, I would go somewhere between 100 and 120. 110 is what works for me. 120, just I feel like everything's too far out. Your world motion blur, turn off. Weapon motion blur, turn off. And if you don't like getting blinded when you get flashbang, you can turn inverted flashbang on, but I'm just used to it, so I leave it off. So I think that summarizes pretty much everything for graphics. I don't think you need to know too much more. Now, as far as audio settings, really the only thing that you need to know is turn mono off. I see some people turn this on, but personally it does not work for me. Your speaker mix, this you're going to have to test out and see what works best for you. PC speakers or headphones are generally honestly what I use, but again, test it out, see when you can hear footsteps better. Also reduce tinnitus sound. If you are seeming like your ears are stinging or ringing, turn this on. To me, it doesn't bother me. Also, I love the hit marker sounds in this game, so I just have this one on default. Also, my game is incredibly loud. If you're wondering why I'm at 18%, this thing is like, if I turn it up past like 25, all I can hear is the game, and it's so loud. So again, this is all going to be different for everyone. So if you want a TLDR of what I have told you, have your horizontal sensitivity one higher than your vertical sensitivity. For your dead zones, have your left stick on 1% less than your minimum stick drift to help with rotational aim assist. Speaking of aim assist, have it on dynamic and instant. Those are the two most important things. As far as movement goes, put on tactical sprint assist and make sure your sprint assist delay is set to 0. Those things alone are going to raise your kill death drastically, and I tried to go through this as quickly as possible. I know these settings videos can be very boring, but I promise you, just that one setting alone is going to make you a way better player. So if I helped you out, hit that like button, subscribe, turn notifications on, let me know what you think down in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, peace.